Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this live stream event. My name is Alexia, and I am the project and event manager of the Microsoft Reactor Toronto. Before we begin, I'd like to quickly review two items with you, our code of conduct and event guidelines. First, please take a moment to review our code of conduct. Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we encourage engagement in the chat, please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Secondly, our event guidelines. This session is being recorded and will be available on demand through our Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. And if you've not been on a live stream through YouTube before, please note that you must create an account on YouTube in order to access and or interact in the chat. You can set that up now, and if you're unable to use the chat but have questions, please feel free to reach out to us through social media or on Meetup. Which brings us to today's session. I'm going to bring in our speaker here. Hello, how are we doing today?
Hi, Alicia. Doing well. Thank you so much. How are you?
Pretty good. Fantastic. We're very excited for today's session.
It's a very nice morning here in California, so
I bet it must be nice. Definitely not as sunny or warm in Toronto, but
yeah.
for sure. That's great. Yeah, I mean, take it away.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much
much for
for the
being here.
time, and let's see if this information that I'm going to provide helps to somebody. So
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
Let's bring it in. Okay, let me introduce myself. This is Jorge Levy. I'm a Microsoft MVP from November last year. I've been working with several communities on Latin America. I'm from Mexico. I speak Spanish, but now, as mentioned, I'm living in California and working with a company on the development area. I've been working with .NET technologies for the last 20 years. Yeah, 20 years because .NET has been in for 20 years. Before that, I was working with Visual Basic and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm a very enthusiastic programmer, and I'm try all the time learn new things. And the matter, why I'm showing the 10U slide. Let me go to the initial slide. There you go. We are going to be talking today about Azure Function, and we are going to be talking about one specific subject that is important to mention, and we will be working on that across my slides, and after that we will be working with some short demo to apply the information that we are checking on the slides. So hello to all the people. I'm checking the chat or the comments. If you have any question, any comment, any moment, please just trigger it out, and I will be taking care of that. If I have the information, I will be trying to answer. If not, I will take that question as a task, and I will be researching and checking a little bit, and maybe we can work together and resolve those questions that you have. So this is me, Jorge Levy. You can find my blog, jorgelevy.com. You will find it in Spanish. So I'm trying to separate my Spanish content on my professional blog. And I'm writing on C# Corner in English. I try to duplicate my blogs in Spanish, also in English. So you will find me in C# Corner. But you can chat with me through Facebook. I'm an old guy, so I'm still with Facebook. And you can find my professional page on facebook.com/jorgelevy.net. You will be able to chat with me. You will be able to talk, to ask some questions, to resolve some. So I'm very open to try to have conversation with people. And you can also find me on Twitter using my user, which is Kodiak MX. Being said that, all the presentation, let's go for the matter that it took us to this conversation today. We are going to be talking about Azure Functions, about two ways to execute those Azure Functions. We will see why, but let's go first. What is the two ways to execute those Azure Functions? The first one, and the one that we have been working for the last years, it's called the in-process execution model. This one, let me use this first one. The things with this way to execute the Azure function is that the serverless functionality, or the Azure function by itself, it executes everything on by like the owner of those threads that is being executed on the Azure function. So, for example, for creating some dependency injections, or maybe instance sharing or entity framework or that kind of things, it was kind of confused to instantiate that kind of things. So we needed to create a new startup class, and in order to be able to execute those things, or to put it on our Azure functions. So another thing, we will need to include some extra Nugget packages in order to be able to. So and that was because, again, the Azure function are being executed by the Azure function per se, not by any other thing. Different like that. With the new versions, it comes the isolated process. It means that the action functions are being executed by a .NET console application. And that's one of the biggest changes that we have with the isolated process. So it is important to mention that now we will have a program.cs class in our Azure functions, where we want to be able to do that kind of thing that we were able to do in InProcess, but not naturally. So now with the program.cs, we are doing that natural. Is going to be, and beyond that, now with the .NET 6, where we lost all the main method and that kind of things, we are also able to continue using those new features from the .NET 6 application. We're going to be a little bit deeper on how the versions are being related to these two ways to execute the Azure functions, but it was important to mention that again. And I may be repeating myself, but in process, it means that the code or the functionality is being executed by the Azure function, but in the isolated process is being executed by that .NET console application through the program.cs. And let me go to the next one. Why is important to understand these two kind of ways to execute the Azure function? The main one is because in the future, I mean, let's go first to the past. In the past, we used to have, or we are still working on the in-process way to do the things. So the majority of our Azure functions are still in .NET Core 3.1. And we have been working with in-process way to do it for a long time. But now, with the introduction of .NET 5, and more recently with the introduction of .NET 6, we are start talking about the isolated process. And if you can see, starting from the .NET 7, which we have already, or preview 3 on these days, we are gonna be working only with the isolated process. So we need to change our mind, and that's why I bring this information to you, because for the future we are gonna be working only on an isolated process. So retaking the information, we have been working in executing those functions in an in-process way to do it, but now we need to change our minds to start working in isolated process. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. It's just how those Azure functions are being executed. But the functionality is going to remain the same. We are going to still have HTTP triggers, a message queue, Cosmos DB trigger, and now they are talking about data, SQL triggers, and that kind of those triggers are going to continue to be the same. So it is important to mention about that from .NET 7, we are going to have only insulated process. Let me see if there are some questions about it. So okay, those domains are far after cold start. If so, how will migrate? Okay, James is asking if the .NET isolation process further affect cold start time. If so, how will you mitigate this one? To be honest, I don't know how to answer that question. So I will take that one and I will review it. And if you follow me on Twitter, we can discuss about it. Jay McCormick is asking if functions are moving away from the time-binding integration of InProcess to using console app in isolated process. Is that correct? Yeah. As mentioned, starting from .NET 7, we are gonna have only isolated process. And one thing that we need to remember, for .NET 5, Azure Functions were not ready to be on the day one of the .NET 5. So they provide us the continue working with .NET 5 for Azure Function until May 2021. But for example, for .NET 6, they were able to provide us the new version and the new way to do it from day one of the framework also. So we are expecting that they continue this way to do everything. So they will be releasing the next Azure Functions on day one of the .NET 5, and again, it will be only isolated process. So yes, answering the question, we are going to be working with isolated process from now on. We will have support for .NET 5 and .NET 6 for 2 more years. So we can continue using the InProcess, but for the future, middle future and long future, it will be only isolated. Being saying that, here is a little bit of the information about how what .NET version are using each of the ones. So, for example, the one that we are working at this point are the .NET, the function version 3.x. If we want to work with that one, we need to continue working with .NET Core 3.1 or .NET 5.0. But and here is a crossover information. So for example, if you are still working with .NET 5, you need, on .NET 5, we are only able to work with an insulated way to execute the process. It's kind of confused. But for example, for the version 4, which is the one that we just got it last November, we are able to work on both ways to execute the functions, in a process or out of the process. And this is going to be only for .NET 6. For .NET 7, it's going to be only insulated. So right now we are in the moment that we are able to use the last release for .NET on both of the ways that we are able to work on with Azure Functions. That is a good question, James. Is there any difference between .NET 5 insulated process and .NET 6 isolated process? No, there's no difference beyond the new features that .NET 6 comes with. For example, for .NET 6 we don't have any. We can have, or we cannot have. We can have the main method, and we cannot have it even. So, but that belongs more to the .NET features more than the Azure function. So in terms of the Azure function, there's no difference working between .NET 5 and .NET 6 in an isolated process. One of the other things that we need to take care is about this table. One thing, let me go back to this slide. You will find all of this information in this link. I will share it with Alexia to be able to put it on the chat. Just give me 1 second and you will have it. So there you go. And Alexia can help us to show that link. So back to my slides. This table is kind of a little bit important, and there are much information here. We are gonna be checking out only a couple of items down there. So, for example, we have again the .NET frameworks that are support for each of the environments. So again, if you are working with out of the process or out of the process way, you can work with .NET 5 and .NET 6. That's the thing. And if you are still working with InProcess, you can still working with .NET Core 3.1 or 6. The other thing is that, and this is important, the core packages of the execution of the Azure functions are going to be different. So, oops, what I did, sorry for that. So it looks like I stopped. There you go. So for the code packages, for InProcess, we only gonna have only one NuGet package to execute our Azure functions. But for the out of the process, we need 2 NuGet packages to execute Azure functions. That this is important. If you are using Visual Studio or you are instantiating your Azure functions through the CLA or through Visual Studio Code, that will be included, but it is important to mention. And the other thing is that all the bindings, extension packages, for example, for HTTP trigger, for the message queue, and those are, for example, for the InProcess, we are going to be continuing the webjobs.extension, and after that, the specific binding NuGet package. But for the out of our process, we are gonna be changing that NuGet package to be the worker.extension. So this is something again that you will get it if you include it directly or using your NuGet console or whatever. But it is important to mention that that will change a little bit. Beyond that, let me see if there is some more information. One important thing about it is that at this point, we can have durable functions only in an in-process way to execute the things. Out of the process is not still support, but if I go back to the roadmap that we have here, we will see that for .NET 6, oh my God, there you go. For .NET 6, we are going to have the durable functions also in an isolated process way to do it, the things. So that was one of the other big difference that we have, and I think those are the main ones. If you would like to check about it, you can check the URL that Microsoft Reactor just shared. So it's now time to go to a demo. Let me know if there is some other question about the theory that we have been working. No, I think that's we have checked all the questions that we have at this point. Again, if you have any question at this point, please let me know, and then we can go out together for that. So let's go for my, let's do it using Visual Studio Code. I've been having issue with my Visual Studio in order to instantiate my Azure function, so I will be using Visual Studio Code. The first thing that we will be doing is just to generate an InProcess application. So to work, most of you should know about it, but to work on Azure Functions with Visual Studio Code, we will need the Azure Function extension. And once we have that one under the Azure tab, we are going to be able to start a new project. Then I will start a new project. I will put it on my demo folder, and I will call it MS Reactor. Let me Microsoft Reactor. I have this on my notes. I will be copying just to be sure that I'm using the right names. So that will be the folder, and after that I will be instantiating this Azure function. So the first thing, we are going to be able to continue working with C#, JavaScript, TypeScript, Python. I'm a C# developer, so I'm going to be using C#. The second thing, and this is where the path takes us to in the two directions, is that we can generate one .NET 6 Azure function, or we can generate the isolated one. So oops. At this point, we are going to be using the .NET 6, which is out of the process, and we will be creating just an HTTP trigger. I'm not gonna go deeply into the bindings and triggers, so just wanted to show you how the difference are. So HTTP trigger, and I will be using this namespace. Then the access is going to be anonymous, and I'm going to be opening in the current window. Okay, I'm trust that I'm working locally. Yeah, perfect. So if you can see, as we have been working, we don't have any other class in our project beyond the one that we just created for the action function for the HTTP trigger. So for example, if we wanted to, let's say that we want to instantiate or we want to introduce entity framework, we will need to create what we have been using called a startup class. So let me try to do that. So for that one, I will need to add into my project. Sorry, let me go to my demos, Microsoft InProcess. There you go. And here, I'm going to be adding this extension or this package in order to be able to create a startup class. So if I click there, if I include that one, we will see that on our project that function extension Nugget package is now included. And now we are able to create a new class, which is going to be called, let me take it from my notes. There you go. What it is? Yeah, function startup, sorry. Let's create this one, startup.cs. And now for that one, we need to, I'm gonna be copy in order to copy from my notes. And this is the structure that startup function should follow. So the first thing is gonna be, let me remove all of the non-necessary. There you go. So this is the way to put it the functionality for a startup application. I mean, for the startup functionality that we needed to execute before the actual function is being served. So, for example, in this one, I have let's do something. I have in my local database, I have a very simple database where I have a couple of people on my people table, and just to show you about it. So let's say that we want to start working with entity framework. So I will be adding the entity framework core Nugget packages for that. I'm not gonna pay too much attention to that one. I'm just including that one because we are talking about Azure Function, not entity framework. So just being very and after that, I should be able to scaffold my models and my data context. So this is gonna be creating my context and my models. So it's taking a little bit. Well, there you go. So if you see on my models, I have now the context and my person class. That's usual thing about entity framework. So if I go back to the startup, I will be able to start doing something. So for example, I am able to create my data context. So yeah, so I will need to include my dependency injection. Again, we are working about dependency injection on my startup. Then I should include my models for the entity framework, and then should include the entity framework code libraries. And I'm forgetting the connection string, which is gonna be this one that I have here. There you go. And finally, on my class, on my HTTP class, I'm gonna be able to create my constructor. There you go. And then under my constructor, I can pass as a parameter my Azure function context. And then I am able um, to create a private read-only property and then say that that is going to be the context that we are injecting from. So another thing that is mentioned here, we need to remove that this is an static class, and also the method for the HTTP trigger is not anymore static because we need to instantiate this Azure function or this class. So that's the way. And finally, just to check that everything is working, we are going to be context, then we have the people, and then we have the first or the fall. Let me copy from my notes. I will need to include the link queue. Oh, sorry. My link queue. There you go. And then I will be able to do that. So if I executed this application with F5, it will take me to the, while that is being executed, I'm checking if there is another question. No. Okay, while that is being starting, okay, now I have my HTTP trigger endpoint. I should be able to execute maybe through my functions extension. I am able to come here and say execute function now with these parameters, but here on the response, we will see that the data coming from database is being taken by the entity framework. So again, this is not about entity framework. This is more about this startup function, and this is how it is on this day, or how it used to be for the in process way to do the things. And this is how we have been working for some years. But now, with the introduction on isolated process, this is changing, and this is changing the way to we also code the things. So let me go and let's do it that way. So let me I'm gonna close this folder, and I'm gonna be creating a new one. So we come here, create a new project. We will put that also on my demo, and that will be called, let me create a folder for my isolated process. So here I'm gonna be again with C# language, and now we are gonna be the .NET isolated. So if we select that one, after that we will select also the HTTP trigger functionality. We will name it the same. We'll put it the namespace that we are going to be using, and this is going to be also anonymous function. So I'm going to open it in the new window. It's now working on, and here is the first difference that we can see. This template, it comes now with the program.cs class beside the HTTP trigger class that we have. So this is important because now we don't need to go and create a class, and we don't need to go and include the NuGet packages in order to put it that startup class. We already have that class. So if we go to that class, we will see that this is also taking advantage of the new .NET 6 functionality. We don't have a main function here, but we can have it. Let's say that you are still working with .NET 5, you will find that this class, it comes with the main method. But now that .NET 6 comes with this new feature where we are not forced to use the main method, we can do it this way. And how the things are going to be, let's do exactly the same what we did for the entity framework. So for example, I'm going to be where's my console? There you go. So let me go to my demo folder, then my Microsoft Reactor, but now in the insulated. Here we are going to be adding the packages for the entity framework. So again, I'm doing exactly the same what we did on the InProcess way to do it. One final NuGet package, and after that, I'm gonna be scaffolding my data context and my model class. So as you can see, it's exactly the same as we have been doing. So again, InProcess versus insulated is not changing the way that we are working with the rest of the stuff. It's only changing the way that the Azure function is being executed. So once we have our model or data context, we will be able to work in this on this. Sorry, I'm checking my notes, and there you go. Back to the idea. We are going to be able to create the dependency injection, the database instantiation, and that kind of things also here on the program.cs class. So the first thing that we need to do is that we are going to be using the configure services method, that it will give us properties where we can use it. The services. Then here on the services, we are going to be saying that, and let me take that from my notes because that will be helpful. So, yeah, so perfect. So first thing, we need to include the dependency injection. So you remember we were able to we need to include the dependency injection, but not the startup namespace for the NuGet package. So we are also including the actual function context from my models, and after that we are using the NTP framework. One thing that we didn't do on the InProcess wait, it was to check about environments, the environment variables. But we are able to use environment variables also the same way that we are using on InProcess or isolated. So if I come here to the local settings, I will add a new configuration with this value, which is my connection string, and I should be able to get that information. You see, now it's saying, again, we are with .NET 6, and .NET 6, it comes also with a new feature that is the nullable check. So right now we are seeing that it's giving us a warning that we are not checking for a null. So again, this is more for the .NET 6, but we have those into the new version of the Azure Functions and working with the isolated process. So once we have configured this program.cs, have you ever heard about program.cs? Yeah, if you create a console application, you will get the program.cs. So again, we are repeating that isolated process is being executed by a .NET console application and not by the Azure function. So while I'll pass to the to work on the HTTP trigger, I'm checking if there is question. I don't see anyone, so I will continue with that. So on the HTTP trigger, it will be exactly the same. So, and if you can see, when we are working in process, the template give us an HTTP trigger class without the constructor, sorry. And if you remember, with the static, those classes are static. Now, with the isolated process and in the template that Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code provides, we don't have anymore those classes as a static, and the constructor is already there. The constructor for the class is already there. So it will be just a matter of including on the parameters the Azure Functions context that I have on context. So I will need to include my model's namespace. Then let's say that we are going to be calling this context, and we can create. And let me take it from my notes just to avoid any issue about it. So here you go. We have a private property called context, and we are instantiated that one with the context that the application is injecting using dependency injection. And again, here we can come here and let's say here on my right. And if you see, the template for the HTTP trigger is kind of a little bit different, the code. So again, this code is not going to change. The functionality that we execute through the Azure Functions is not going to be changed. We are, if you have, or maybe you have the question, if I'm working with an in-process Azure function and I need to migrate to an isolated process, will I need to upgrade my functionality? I will say no. It will only upgrade the way to execute those Azure functions. So here, back to my function, let's say that here we want to inject the, why is not giving me the context, oops, people, first of default, here we go, and then my first name of that function. And again, is checking for the nullables, again, .NET 6. If we execute this one, yeah, I think we have everything ready to execute. So I press F5. It trigger all the all the things that is going to be triggered by the Azure function. I have some warning because of the entity framework. Those are out again for the entity framework. And if you can see, now we have our HTTP trigger endpoint that the Azure function is providing. So if we go again to the functions section that the extension providers, we are able to execute from here. And if we say execute this function with those parameters, we will see that the response, it comes with my name. And one of the other things is that since, if you can see, logger information is now being included on, we have better login information. So for example, we are able to see that the entity framework is also triggering some logger logs routines. So what I'm trying to say is that since the dependency injection is now on the execution plan or in the execution way to do it, the things is now more natural to do the log information. So you can include log4net or maybe doing application insight for your actual functions more naturally than it used to be. Being said that, I don't know if there any other question. Let me check about it. No, there's no more questions. It looks I'm short of. I mean, that's all the information that I have. So let's see, we can do some other stuff. I don't know if you have any question to or any suggestion to work on. Let's do something. Let's try to do some dependency injection because this was more on the entity framework way to do it. For let's say that we want to create a new. Let's see which one we can use. Let's do something with class one. I'm so bad with names, so I'm gonna be use just class one. So this is gonna be a public, interface class one. And what is doing? I'm doing the thing just public. This could be a class. This should be a class. There you go. And here we need to say that we have a public. Let's say that it will return a string get name. Just like that. Yeah, but what is now saying? Public name. Why I have okay, let me try to get that information from another place. Again, I'm doing some time to you to let me know if you have any other question or if you have any suggestion to work on. What else? What else? So let me do something. There you go. Should be interface. Oh yeah, you're right. This should be interface. Sorry, I forgot to. Can you help me to create the interface? Sorry for that. There is a question for James that it says, regarding the login, is there any interface for login metrics? I think you will need to include some specific knowledge. So for example, I've been using log4net, and that will help you. And again, it's just a matter of doing the use of the tier party or tier NuGet packages to do that. By the Azure function login functionality, I don't think that will be supported. So yeah, sorry for that. There you go. So let me, no, it's not a class. I had to do that. Okay. A class, this is gonna be an interface. There you go. Sorry for that. Class one, and it's called I. There you go. And then we have a string, get name. There you go. Perfect. So we are gonna be able to, I'm gonna do it here also at the same time. Then we have a class, which is gonna be class one that inherit from class one. There you go. And we should get name. Here is where, there you go. Let's say that this return just a string, hello world, something like that. There you go. There you go. So that's why it doesn't implement class one. You're right. You're not implementing how it should be. Hold a second. String public. This should be public. I think so. There you go. Perfect. That's why. So if we go to the program CS, we should be able to service, and then we are going to be using, we are going to be doing the injection through the, checking my notes, through the, service dot, oh, I forgot the singleton, yeah. Singleton, for example, or the scope, whatever we do. So here it will instantiate the I class one. There you go. And we are going to be injecting the, we are going to be using the parameter, the class one, where is my, there you go. Sorry, I needed to remember about it. So again, we create an interface and we create a class, and we are using singleton, or it could be the other three ways to do the dependency injection. And now we are able to, as we did it for the context, we can inject the class one, exactly. Let's say that this is gonna be class one. There you go. This is the reason that I private read only, perfect. It's gonna be I class one, and we are gonna call it class one, perfect. And we are gonna instantiate this class one with the class one that we are passing, perfect. So here, as we did it, we are able to let's say that we are going to be replacing this one to be the class one dot get name. And this is how we are doing the dependency injection. So if we execute it, the application, we can execute it using our extension, or maybe, for example, using our Postman. So let's wait for it. Oh, it's getting an error. What is the error? Oh, I may know why. So it looks like my class is not public, my interface. Maybe that will be my, yeah. Public. Let's see if that was the issue. I'm not seeing any other question. So this is being executed. There you go. Then if we execute this function from our Postman, we will see that the text that is being returned, it comes from the dependency injection from a instantiation of an interface that we have on our startup project. So again, let's try to summarize what we have been talking about it. There's two ways to work with the Azure function now. One is the InProcess, and the new way to do it is the isolated process. Isolated process, it comes with a program.cs class where we are seeing that the Azure function is being executed by this thread or by this console application. We are able to do it, dependency injection, inserting entity framework, and all that kind of thing that we do with the .NET functionality that we have for the any other kind of project like MVC, API, or Blazor or whatever. So it looks like Azure Function is going in the way that it's kind of trying to put all on the same phase or on the same way that the rest of the project has been executed, I think. So being saying that, I'm seeing that it has a question. How can we get config values? Can we use iConfigure builder? Yes. As you can see, actually, on Azure Functions is kind of easier than the other kind of project. We have the environment, and then we have the environment class, and then we have the method that is called get environment variable, and then we should pass the variable. I don't know if that was configuration values. Yeah. Then on the local setting JSONs, we have that configuration that we are referring to. I don't know if that was the question, but that will be my answer. Being said that, I think I will be done with my session. Again, let me try to put my information where you can find me. There you go. I will thank you for you to be here and listen about it. I will thank you to Microsoft Reactor to invite me to have this conversation. It was a great one. You can find me, again, my blog, jorgelevy.com, is in Spanish. Sorry for that. But you will be able to find those blogs entries into the C# Corner blog. But if you want to talk with me, or you want to have a conversation, or you have any other question, the question that I wasn't able to answer, please, if you follow me, or if you wanted to discuss over that, I will research about it and we can talk about it. That is through Facebook, facebook.com/jorgelevy.net, which is my professional page. we will be able to work on. Then on Twitter, you can find me with Kodiak MX. I'm seeing a couple of messages about thank you, Fred. Gracias a ti. Siegfried and Jesus, thank you for being here. And again, if you have any other question, any comment, you can find me on the net, on the social networks. Alexia?
Hey, well, hey, thank you so much for today's session. This was great. Yeah, as you said, lots of comments here in the chat, thanking for this session. Lots of interaction in the chat. That's usually awesome.
Yeah.
And
follow me. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah.
Follow me if you are interested or you are looking for get more information about Azure Function. I will be doing a lot of conversation, a lot of blogs about it. I'm very enthusiastic about Azure Function, so I've been creating some content on Spanish, but now I'm trying with English. So
that's great. Awesome. Yeah, just jumping in here. If you have an extra few minutes, feel free to share your experience on the link that I shared in the chat earlier, right here. And on the screen, the event code is 15714. We greatly appreciate any feedback. And if you're interested in reviewing this session or any other Microsoft Reactor sessions, you can do so on our YouTube channel. We're also on Meetup if you're looking to sign up for more events, and on social media as well. Yeah, trying to build a great community here.
Great effort Microsoft Reactor is doing. So.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. And yeah, to the next one.
Exactly. Hopefully we can meet it soon.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.